Hello, Whispers in the Dark viewers. In today's video, I will tell our story, Whispers of the Forgotten. You may feel scared while listening to this story. If you are ready for horror and mystery, let's start. The crisp autumn air carried a whisper of foreboding as Ava stood before the towering, dilapidated mansion. Its once grand facade had succumbed to the ravages of time. The weathered bricks and crumbling mortar, a testament to the secrets it had kept buried for decades. Ava couldn't help but feel a tinge of unease as she gazed up at the imposing structure, her fingers tracing the faded envelope in her hands. It had all started with that mysterious letter, delivered to her doorstep just a few days ago. The elegant script, the faded seal, and the curious invitation to explore her family's ancestral home had ignited a spark of curiosity within Ava that she couldn't ignore. Despite her better judgment, she had decided to accept the challenge. And now here she stood, her best friend Lucas by her side, equally intrigued and apprehensive. "Are you sure about this, Ava?" Lucas asked, his brow furrowed as he studied the mansion with a skeptical eye. "This place gives me the creeps. I mean, look at it. It's practically falling apart. And your family hasn't owned it in years. What if there's a reason no one's been here in so long?" Ava took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the envelope. "I know, Lucas. Believe me, I've been asking myself the same questions. But don't you find it the least bit interesting? Our families used to own this place, and now it's just been abandoned. Don't you want to know why?" Lucas sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I guess you've got a point. But you know me, I'm more of a look before you leap kind of guy. Are you sure you want to do this?" Ava nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. "I have to, Lucas. There's something about this place that's calling to me, and I can't just ignore it. Come on, let's at least take a look around. Who knows what we might find?" With a reluctant nod, Lucas followed Ava as she approached the towering front doors, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the rusted handle. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit foyer shrouded in shadows. Ava stepped inside, her senses immediately assaulted by the musty scent of decay and the eerie silence that seemed to permeate every corner of the mansion. "Wow, this place is even creepier on the inside," Lucas muttered, his voice barely above a whisper as he surveyed their surroundings. "Are you sure we shouldn't just turn around and go home?" Ava ignored his protest, her gaze fixed on the grand staircase that led to the upper levels. "Look, there's an old diary on the table. Maybe it'll give us some clues about the history of this place." Carefully, she reached for the weathered leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and crumbling. Ava gently opened the cover, her eyes scanning the faded ink scrawled across the pages. "July 12, 1902, she read aloud, her brow furrowing in concentration. "The shadows in this house grow longer with each passing day. I fear what lurks within them, what secrets they hold. My husband, The entry ends there." Lucas peered over her shoulder, his expression a mixture of curiosity and unease. "Whoa, that's creepy. What do you think happened to the person who wrote that?" Ava shook her head, her fingers tracing the delicate script. "I don't know, but I intend to find out. There has to be more to this story, Lucas. Don't you want to know what happened here?" Before Lucas could respond, a sudden chill swept through the foyer, and the shadows seemed to deepen, as if the very air had grown heavier. Ava felt a shiver run down her spine, and she instinctively tightened her grip on the diary. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, her eyes darting around the room. Lucas nodded, his own expression tense. "Yeah, I did. I think we should get out of here, Ava. This place is giving me the creeps." Ava hesitated, her gaze drawn to the grand staircase once more. "But what about the diary? And the rest of the mansion? Don't you want to know what happened here?" Lucas opened his mouth to protest, but before he could speak, a faint whisper echoed through the foyer, so soft and ethereal that it sent a shiver down Ava's spine. "Stay," the voice seemed to murmur, the sound barely audible yet somehow permeating the very air around them. Ava and Lucas exchanged a startled glance, their hearts pounding in their chests. "Did you hear that?" Ava breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas nodded, his eyes wide. "Yeah, I did. And I think that's our cue to get out of here, Ava. This place is seriously messed up. Ava hesitated, her gaze drawn back to the diary in her hands. The whisper had sounded so plaintive, so desperate, that it had awakened a curiosity within her that she couldn't ignore. Steeling her nerves, she turned to Lucas, her expression resolute. I'm going to stay, Lucas. I need to know what happened here. You can go if you want, but I'm going to explore this place and find out the truth. Lucas stared at her, his brow furrowed in concern. Ava, are you sure about this? I mean, did you hear that whisper? It sounded like something straight out of a horror movie. I really think we should just leave and forget about this place. Ava shook her head, her grip tightening on the diary. I can't, Lucas. There's something here that's calling to me, and I have to find out what it is. You can go if you want, but I'm staying. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, fine, but I'm not leaving you here alone. I guess I'm in this with you, for better or for worse. Ava smiled, relief and gratitude shining in her eyes. Thanks, Lucas. I knew I could count on you. Together, they began to explore the mansion, their footsteps echoing against the crumbling walls as they ventured deeper into the eerie, shadowed halls. Ava couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and the whisper that had echoed through the foyer still lingered in the back of her mind, a haunting reminder of the secrets this place held. As they ascended the grand staircase, Ava couldn't help but wonder what they would find, and whether the answers they sought would be worth the risk they were taking. But with Lucas by her side, she knew she could face whatever lay ahead, no matter how daunting it might be. The mansion seemed to exhale as Ava and Lucas lingered in the eerie silence of the foyer. The whispers they had heard still hung in the air, fragile yet unnerving, like the remnants of forgotten memories desperate to be unearthed. With hesitant steps, they settled into the dusty parlor, where a dim light filtered through cracked windows. Ava reopened the diary, its pages seeming to tremble in her hands. She took a deep breath and began reading aloud once more, her voice echoing softly in the empty room. August 3rd, 1902. My husband grows distant with each passing day. He whispers to himself in the dead of night, speaking to shadows I cannot see. Our children are frightened, and I, too, fear what lurks in these walls. There is something in this house that watches us, something that wishes to harm. Ava looked up, her face pale. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, the gravity of the entry settling heavily between them. Ava, this is not just some harmless diary. Whatever they were going through, it sounds like it left a mark on this place. But Ava's curiosity had only grown sharper. There's more to this than fear, Lucas. They weren't just scared of shadows. They were scared of something, someone. I have to know who. Reluctantly, Lucas agreed, and they made their way down a long corridor lined with aging portraits. The faces in the paintings seemed to watch them as they passed, eyes following their every movement with an unnerving, lifelike quality. In one of the rooms, they stumbled upon a nursery, the remnants of a once-cherished space left to decay. A small rocking horse sat in the corner, the paint chipped and faded. Without warning, the horse rocked gently, as if pushed by an unseen hand. Lucas froze, his breath catching in his throat. Ava, tell me you saw that. I did, she whispered, inching closer to examine the toy, the hairs on her arms standing on end. But look, there's another entry here. Maybe it explains what happened to their children. Turning back to the diary, Ava read, September 19th, 1902. The children refuse to sleep in their beds. They claim they hear whispers, voices calling them into the night. I cannot understand it, but they say the voice promises them safety and warmth. What could be safer than our own home? Ava's voice faltered, her fingers tracing the words. Lucas, it's as if something was luring them. Just then, a faint sound echoed down the hallway, a distant, haunting lullaby. Lucas felt a chill race down his spine, his hand instinctively reaching for Ava's. I don't like this, Ava. This place isn't just haunted by memories. Feels alive, like it's waiting for something. But Ava was undeterred. And we're gonna find out why. Her voice carried an edge of determination as she led him toward the source of the music, deeper into the shadowed corridors. The music drew them to a locked door, a tarnished brass handle with an ominous chill radiating from it. Ava turned to Lucas, her eyes gleaming with resolve. This is it. There has to be something important behind this door. Lucas hesitated, his gaze flickering between the door and the darkened hallway behind them. Ava, maybe we should wait. Come back with more, I don't know, daylight? But Ava's hand was already on the handle. She turned it, and the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dust-covered furniture and faint markings on the walls, as if someone had tried to scratch their way out. In the center of the room lay a single, child-sized bed, its sheets eerily untouched. Ava swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. Lucas, this doesn't feel right. As if in response, the whispers returned, louder this time, filling the room with their haunting murmur. Ava clutched the diary close, and Lucas took a step back, a sudden weight pressing on his chest. The diary slipped from Ava's fingers, falling open to an entry they had not yet read. Its ink seemed fresh, as though the words had only recently been written. October 13th, 1902. The voices grow stronger. They call to us each night louder, each night darker. I fear they will take us, consume us whole. Lucas's voice trembled. Ava, please, let's leave. Whatever happened here, it's not our burden to carry. Let's go while we still can. But Ava could not tear her eyes away from the open diary, from the words that seemed to pulse with an energy all their own. Lucas, she whispered, it feels like we were meant to be here. The room's shadows deepened, encircling them as they stood frozen in place, the echoes of the past awakening all around them. The midnight air felt colder within the mansion walls, and Ava could swear the shadows were watching her every move. The weight of unseen eyes bore down on her, making the hairs on the back of her neck prickle. Ava hadn't been able to shake the feeling since she and Lucas had unlocked that last room and read the diary's haunting entries. But tonight it was different. She'd been having vivid dreams, or perhaps visions, that followed her even as she wandered the old halls. The dreams were hazy yet disturbingly real. A woman's ghostly figure, pale and forlorn, calling to her from somewhere beyond the veil of sleep. In the dream, the woman appeared just close enough for Ava to make out her face, gaunt with sorrow but unsettlingly familiar. The apparition murmured in a fragile voice, words that struck a deep, personal chord in Ava. They needed me, and I failed them, the ghost whispered, her voice trembling. How will you keep them safe? Ava bolted awake, gasping, her heart racing as her mind wrestled with the ghost's words. How will you keep them safe? The question echoed in her head, mirroring her own anxieties about her fractured family. She'd always been the one trying to hold them together, even as life pulled them apart. The ghostly figure, with her piercing gaze, seemed to see right through her, as if her presence in Ava's dreams was no coincidence but a twisted reflection of her own fears. The next morning, Ava recounted her dream to Lucas as they navigated the mansion's labyrinthine hallways. He listened, the worry in his eyes deepening with every word. Ava, this is getting out of hand. That woman in your dreams, she sounds too real, too specific. Don't you think she could be trying to tell you something? Ava shook her head, the edges of the dream still lingering in her mind. I don't know, Lucas. It's like she's reaching out to me, warning me. But it's not just about the house. It feels personal, like she understands my own doubts, my fears. Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze earnest. Maybe that's a sign we should stop. Whatever is haunting this place is starting to haunt you, too. This isn't just some adventure anymore, Ava. It's messing with your mind, and I don't like it. Ava hesitated, her fingers tightening around the diary. The sensible thing would be to leave, to listen to Lucas and abandon this eerie investigation. But a part of her felt bound to the spirit, as though understanding her story could offer answers to her own life. I can't walk away, Lucas, she whispered, her voice firm. It's as if this woman, this ghost, is carrying her own grief, and if we can't uncover what happened, it'll never let us go. Lucas sighed, exasperated yet unwilling to leave her side. "All right, but I'm not letting you face this alone. Whatever we find, we confront it together." That night, as the mansion shrouded itself in silence, Ava was once again pulled into a dream. She found herself in the dim, candlelit parlor of the mansion, face to face with the ghostly woman. Her eyes were hollow, reflecting sorrow and regret that Ava recognized all too well. "Your family is slipping away, Ava. Will you fail them as I failed mine?" The question stung, and Ava felt her resolve waver. "Why are you haunting me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The ghost took a step closer, her face etched with anguish. "Because we are bound, you and I. The house, my story, it's part of you now, as it was part of me. You must be strong, stronger than I was." Ava awoke with a start, the image of the woman's haunting gaze lingering in her mind. Determined to understand, she met Lucas in the foyer, her face pale but resolute. "Lucas, I saw her again. She's connected to me. She's urging me to keep my family together." "But why? Why would a ghost care about my family?" Lucas clenched his jaw, his own unease growing. "Maybe because whatever tore her family apart is tied to this place. Maybe it's feeding on our fears, just like it fed on hers." Together, they combed through the mansion, searching for any clue that could break the ghost's hold over Ava. Every creak of the floorboards, every shifting shadow felt alive, charged with some dark energy, as if the house was challenging them, pushing them to confront their own fears. In one of the rooms, they found an old photograph, faded but unmistakable. A family portrait with a young woman standing at the center, her gaze weary but determined. Ava's breath caught in her throat. The woman looked just like the ghost who'd haunted her dreams. Beneath the photograph, a single line was scrawled in elegant script. "Love is fragile, and fear is its enemy." Ava felt a shiver run down her spine, the words embedding themselves deep within her. Love, fragile as it was, had been overcome by fear in this place, and it seemed to echo her own insecurities about her family. Her fingers traced the faded lines, her heart heavy with a mixture of fear and understanding. Lucas took her hand gently, his own fear evident in his eyes, yet his resolve unwavering. "Ava, whatever this spirit is, it's using your own fears against you. Maybe it's trying to make you lose hope, just like it did to her. Don't let it." Ava met his gaze, a newfound determination solidifying within her. The mansion held secrets, dark and dangerous, but she would face them. Whatever horrors lingered within these walls, whatever fears clawed at her from within, she would confront them head-on. As they turned to leave the room, the whisper returned, louder now, echoing through the halls in a haunting refrain. "Stay with us, stay with me." But Ava squared her shoulders, clutching the photograph as though it were a talisman. She wasn't here to surrender to her fears. She was here to understand, to bring peace to the tortured souls of the past and, perhaps, to her own. Hand in hand, Ava and Lucas walked into the darkness, the faint whispering growing louder, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the mansion's secrets, and closer to a truth they were only beginning to unravel. The oppressive weight of silence filled the mansion as Ava and Lucas stood in the parlor, their breaths shallow as they braced themselves for what was to come. Ava clutched the diary and the photograph they'd found, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. Every revelation so far had brought her closer to the ghost haunting her dreams. Each new clue deepening the unsettling connection she felt to the woman's sorrowful spirit. Lucas stayed close by her side, his brow furrowed as he scanned the shadows. He'd followed her into this darkness without hesitation, but the fear in his eyes betrayed his uncertainty. Ava felt it too, a gnawing doubt that perhaps they were not dealing with just a restless spirit, but something darker, something that fed on the pain etched into the mansion's very walls. They had gathered enough now to attempt a confrontation. The air felt charged, as though the house itself knew what they were about to do. Ava closed her eyes, took a steadying breath, and called out into the darkness. "We know who you are," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "We know what happened to you. Please show yourself." A heavy silence filled the air, stretching longer than Ava's courage could bear. Just as her heart began to race with doubt, a cold gust swept through the room, flickering the candle they'd brought with them. Slowly, the apparition began to materialize, pale, translucent, with a hollow gaze that seemed to pierce right through Ava. The ghost of the woman looked at Ava, sorrow weighing heavy in her spectral eyes. Her form was hazy, barely holding together as she floated before them, but her voice was sharp, filled with anguish. "Why have you come here?" she whispered, her words tinged with resentment and pain. "Why do you disturb what must remain buried?" Ava swallowed hard, her fingers trembling. "Because I feel like you're connected to me, and I need to know why. Why are you haunting me? Why can't you rest?" The ghost's expression shifted, her sorrow deepening as she glanced at the photograph Ava held. "Connected? Yes, perhaps we are." Her voice broke, the pain evident. "This house is bound to my suffering. Betrayal, loss. It claimed me as it has claimed others." Lucas's voice was soft but firm as he asked, "What happened to you here?" The ghost's form wavered as memories seemed to flood her, dragging her back into the pain she had endured in life. "I was once like you, Ava, hopeful, bound to my family, willing to do anything to keep them together." Her voice grew colder, but fear poisoned that hope. "My husband, he betrayed me, left me with nothing but this house and memories that festered like a wound. I clung to the past, to the fear that tore my family apart, until it consumed me. And here I remain, bound to these walls, unable to escape my own sorrow." Ava's heart ached as she listened, the woman's words resonating with her own worries. She had been carrying the weight of her family's troubles too, struggling to keep them together even as they drifted apart. "Is that why you reached out to me?" Ava asked softly. "Because you see the same fears in me?" The ghost nodded, her translucent face a mirror of Ava's insecurities. "I see my own pain in you, Ava. A family fractured, a heart struggling to hold it together. I thought if I could just keep you here, you'd understand, you'd feel my pain as I did. But even now, I don't know if that will ever be enough." Lucas, who had been watching with wary eyes, finally spoke up, his voice edged with urgency. "But why us? Why did you draw Ava here? She's not part of this tragedy." The ghost turned to him, a flicker of bitterness in her gaze. "Oh, but she is. You both are. The ties that bind me to this house are tangled with Ava's family. Decades ago, my pain became their pain, and it lives on, in her." Ava's heart stopped as she realized the depth of the connection. Her family wasn't just drawn to this house out of curiosity. They were a part of its dark legacy, entwined in the very tragedy that had claimed this woman's life. Seeing the realization dawn on Ava's face, the ghost's voice softened, almost pleading. "I don't want to suffer alone, Ava. Can you understand? This pain, this betrayal, it has tied us together. I cannot let go. Not until someone else understands the torment of a heart left in ruins." Ava's hands shook as the weight of the ghost's words settled over her. The connection to her family's past was real, binding her to this place as tightly as the spirit itself. But she felt the strength to break that bond growing within her, a determination to end the cycle of fear and pain that had gripped the mansion for so long. "No," Ava whispered, her voice growing stronger. "I won't let this pain consume me. It may be a part of my past, a part of my family's past, but it doesn't have to be my future. You don't have to hold on to this forever." The ghost looked at her, sorrow etched deeply into her fading form. For a moment, the house seemed to hold its breath, as if even the walls were listening, waiting to see if the cycle would finally break. "And how do you plan to do that, Ava?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "How will you end what I could not?" Ava took a steadying breath, her gaze unwavering. "By letting go, by forgiving myself, my family, and maybe even you." She turned to Lucas, feeling the warmth of his presence grounding her, giving her the strength to face this darkness head-on. Together, Lucas tightened his grip on her hand, a look of fierce loyalty in his eyes. "Then we'll do this, Ava. We'll put an end to it. You're not alone, and neither is she." A flicker of something almost like hope flashed in the ghost's eyes, a faint spark that seemed to ease some of the sorrow clinging to her. She began to fade, her form dissipating into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling calm. But just as she vanished, her final words hung in the air, a warning wrapped in gratitude. Beware, Ava. This house remembers, and it will try to make you forget. Don't let it. And with that, the apparition was gone, leaving Ava and Lucas alone in the dim, hollow silence of the mansion. Ava's heart pounded, the reality of the connection they'd uncovered settling over her. Her family's past was entangled with the ghost's pain, bound by secrets long buried, but she felt hope in the possibility of finally releasing it all. The mansion seemed to shudder, its shadows receding ever so slightly, as though the release of the ghost story had lifted some of the darkness. But Ava knew their journey was far from over. The house still held secrets, still whispered of memories and shadows that waited to be unearthed. As she and Lucas made their way back through the halls, she felt the ghost's warning echo in her mind, a lingering reminder that the mansion's dark legacy was still woven into her family's story. But for the first time, Ava felt a glimmer of hope that she could end this haunting cycle, and perhaps bring peace to the past. The morning light streamed faintly through the mansion's cracked windows, casting a cold, dusty glow over the forgotten relics scattered across the grand foyer. Ava and Lucas stood side by side, their resolve unshaken as they prepared to venture even deeper into the mansion's secrets. The weight of the ghost's sorrow and the dark legacy tied to Ava's family still lingered, but Ava felt a new strength within her, a determination to break free from this cycle of suffering once and for all. After hours of poring over the diary and scouring every room they could access, Ava and Lucas had pieced together enough to know that the heart of the mansion's mystery lay in a hidden room. According to the fragmented notes in the diary, the room held memories that had been carefully concealed from the world, preserved like a tomb for the spirit that still haunted the halls. "There has to be a way in," Ava whispered, her eyes scanning the faded wallpaper and the barely visible seams in the wall where they suspected the entrance lay hidden. Lucas ran his fingers along the wall's surface, pressing and tapping, searching for any weakness. After a few moments, his hand paused. "Here," he said quietly, pressing down on an unassuming panel. With a soft click, the wall swung open to reveal a narrow passage cloaked in shadows. The scent of old paper and mildew wafted out, mingling with the familiar chill of the mansion's stale air. Ava and Lucas exchanged a glance, a mixture of excitement and apprehension in their eyes. Taking a deep breath, they stepped into the darkness, the sound of their footsteps echoing faintly as they made their way down the passage. The room at the end of the corridor was small and dimly lit, with walls lined in shelves of letters, photographs, and faded mementos, all covered in a thick layer of dust. Ava felt a chill as she stepped further inside, her gaze falling on a worn armchair and a stack of papers resting beside it. She reached for one of the letters, gently unfolding the brittle paper. "It's from her," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. These are her words. All the things she was too afraid to share with the world. The letters revealed a heartbreaking story of betrayal and grief. They told of the woman's husband's cruelty, his lies, and the gradual descent into isolation that had left her alone, her only company the echoes of her shattered dreams. Ava's heart ached as she read the words, the raw pain in each letter stirring memories of her own family's struggles, their secrets hidden beneath a fragile veneer of unity. Lucas gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "Ava, these letters, they're like pieces of her soul. She wrote them because she needed someone to understand, to know her story, even if it was hidden." Ava nodded, her fingers trembling as she traced the lines of faded ink. "We have to share this, Lucas. This isn't just her story, it's a part of my family's past too. I think if we tell the townspeople what happened here, if we bring her story into the light, it might be enough to give her peace." Lucas looked at her, admiration softening his gaze. "Then that's exactly what we'll do. Whatever it takes, we're in this together." They spent hours in the hidden room, reading letter after letter, sorting through photographs, and piecing together the final threads of the woman's life. Every photograph, Every torn page painted a vivid image of a woman who had once been full of life, her dreams as grand as the mansion itself, only to have them dashed in the most devastating way. Ava felt her connection to the ghost deepening, an understanding of their shared pain forging a bond across time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a golden glow, Ava and Lucas carried the letters and photographs out of the hidden room. They spent the evening compiling them, crafting a narrative that would tell the ghost's story in her own words. A story of love, betrayal, and the heartbreak that had bound her spirit to the mansion for so long. Outside the mansion, they found a small gathering of townspeople, most of whom had come to investigate the strange happenings at the old house. Ava took a deep breath, glancing at Lucas for reassurance before stepping forward. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady. "I know many of you have heard rumors about this place, and I know some of you might even feel uneasy being here, but there's a reason for it. A story that's been hidden for far too long." She held up one of the photographs, showing the woman who had once been a vibrant part of the community, her smile captured in a moment of fleeting happiness. This was her home. She was betrayed, abandoned, and left to suffer alone. And somehow she never left. Her spirit has lingered here, bound by the pain she couldn't escape in life. The crowd listened in rapt silence as Ava recounted the woman's story, drawing on the letters and photographs to paint a picture of a life haunted by despair. By the time she finished, the faces around her were filled with a mix of sadness and understanding. One of the older townspeople, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, stepped forward, a look of recognition dawning on her face. "I remember hearing about her when I was a child. People said she was troubled, that she'd been abandoned, but no one knew the full story. Thank you, Ava. Thank you for bringing her peace." As the townspeople dispersed, murmuring quietly among themselves, Ava felt a strange calm settle over her. The weight of the mansion's sadness felt lighter, as if the darkness had lifted with the telling of the story. She looked at Lucas, a soft smile breaking through the tension. "We did it," she said quietly. "We gave her story back to the world. Maybe now she can finally rest." Lucas smiled, relief and pride filling his eyes. "You did more than that, Ava. You broke the cycle. You didn't let her pain define you or your family's story. You gave her the peace she couldn't find on her own." They stood together in the fading light, the mansion's once foreboding walls now seeming almost peaceful, as if even the house had breathed a sigh of relief. As Ava glanced back at the doorway, she thought she saw a faint figure watching them, a look of gratitude softening the ghost's once haunted gaze before she faded into the shadows for the last time. With a final, quiet farewell, Ava and Lucas left the mansion, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held, together and unbound by the darkness of the past. The morning was clear, a soft mist rolling over the hills as the townspeople gathered around the mansion, drawn by curiosity and the promise of an old story finally laid to rest. Ava and Lucas stood at the mansion's entrance, their hearts full with the weight of the story they had uncovered, yet lightened by the journey they'd shared. With quiet reverence, Ava addressed the crowd, sharing the ghost's tale once more, but this time with a newfound clarity. She spoke of the woman's life, her dreams, and the tragic betrayal that had bound her to the mansion. She described the isolation and heartbreak that had haunted her, and how, until now, no one had known the truth. She was never a threat, Ava concluded, her voice strong yet tender. She was just a woman who felt abandoned and forgotten. This house held her sorrow, her loneliness. By bringing her story into the light, we're freeing her from this place and giving her the peace she deserved. The townspeople listened intently, the fear in their eyes giving way to understanding. Among them, a few older villagers nodded in quiet recognition, perhaps remembering long-forgotten whispers of the woman's life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, an unspoken agreement that the story would no longer be buried or feared. Ava felt a sense of closure settle over her, as if the mansion itself was releasing a long-held breath. As the crowd dispersed, one by one, Ava and Lucas remained, looking back at the once dilapidated mansion. But now it felt different, less ominous, softened by the early sunlight. The weight that had pressed on its walls and whispered through its hallways seemed to have lifted, leaving only a serene quiet. "You did it, Ava," Lucas said, his voice warm with admiration. "You set her free." Ava smiled, a mix of relief and pride shining in her eyes. "I think we both did. I couldn't have done this without you, Lucas." She paused, taking in the gentle silence around them, then added, "I feel like I'm free too. Not just from the fear of what happened here, but from my own doubts. My family's past doesn't have to define me. I can choose my own way forward." Lucas nodded, a steady reassurance in his gaze. "You've always had that strength, Ava. You just needed to see it for yourself. And I've learned something too." He looked at her thoughtfully. "I always thought I had to keep my distance, stay cautious. But this showed me that sometimes you need to trust and dive in, even when things are uncertain." They shared a quiet moment, the bond between them deeper than before, shaped by the journey they had taken together. As they turned to leave, Ava glanced back one last time, half expecting to see a faint figure watching them from the window. But there was nothing, only the warm glow of morning sunlight spilling through the cracked glass. With a deep breath, they walked away from the mansion, side by side. The air felt lighter, filled with a sense of renewal, as though the past had finally released its grip on the present. For the first time in what felt like ages, Ava felt truly at peace. As they left the mansion's shadow behind, Ava and Lucas felt transformed, carrying with them not only the ghost story but their own newfound strength. Whatever the future held, they knew they could face it, together and unafraid. A new dawn had risen, and with it, a sense of hope that stretched as far as the horizon. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked our video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our video, and share your thoughts with us in the comments.